Time now to go behind the story, featuring a leading voice on one of today's top topics and a friend of Erie News Now, Dr. Fred Hoffman, Mercyhurst University, back in the house.
Welcome in, Fred. We appreciate you being here. Good to see
Always
you, sir.
a pleasure.
Good to see you, sir.
Always a pleasure.
All right, my friends. So we're just wrapping up a two-day event, the SCO over in China. A lot of world leaders from non-Western countries joining President Xi Jinping over there. What'd you make of all of it?
I think a lot of it is posturing. And the SCO, it's interesting because the SCO is not what it used to be when it was originally set up. And you've got countries, for example, Azerbaijan has got kind of increased tensions with Russia. So there's countries that are members of that organization that are now kind of pulling back a bit, right? But I think this is also in response to when you had all the EU countries that came to the White House, they're like, oh yeah, we can do that too.
Well, President Donald Trump, Fred, his original 50-day deadline he gave President Putin, well, expired. So now what?
Well, it's interesting because you look at the events that have happened since the summit in Alaska, right? They hit the Flex factory, a factory that's been in western Ukraine, by the way, almost on the Hungarian border since 2012. The Russians bombed that. Fortunately, they had an air raid siren, and most of the 500 people that worked there got out. All right, so you had that. You've got a Russian submarine that has made threatening moves toward the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier, and NATO is actively hunting that. You have von der Leyen flying into Bulgaria, and the Russians used GPS jamming. The pilots had to break out paper maps, which is not what their custom is, to land the aircraft. And then they did it to another one. A few hours later, the Inspector General of the German Armed Forces, Carsten Breuer, was on another plane, and the same thing happened. So, if you look at the activities that the Russians have kind of done, and since the summit, you see that they're more aggressive than they were before.
How does President Trump then respond to Russian President Vladimir Putin, not only with those military moves, but being there with President Xi Jinping after he just met with President Trump?
Well, I think President Trump, he's been kicking the can down the road a little bit with the sanctions. We'll give you 2 more weeks, we'll give you 2 more weeks. I think that time has come to an end. And I think that the Russians have telegraphed very clearly that, they've got kind of a maximalist position, saying, oh yeah, we're open to negotiations, but we want everything that, our way. And that's just not going to fly. So President Trump has got some difficult choices to make now.
Fred, the president has also threatened secondary tariffs. Will that make a difference?
Well, here's the thing. There's tariffs and there's tariffs, right? If the existing tariffs were vigorously enforced, all of a sudden Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan and other countries, their exports have gone through the roof. Why? Because they're buying from Western Europe and reselling it right into Russia, right? So if European companies would clamp down on that, I think that even the existing sanctions would be more effective. So,
Dr. Fred Hoffman, we always appreciate your insight, sir.
Pleasure as always.
Thank you so much.
As always.